Moving on to item 2W, 1213 Harvard.
Harvard Street. The applicant proposes to construct an addition to a contributing Queen Anne cottage. The residence has experienced several interior and exterior renovations over the years, including an attic build-out and roof alteration that is believed to have occurred in the 1990s. The proposed addition will replicate the location of the existing attic build-out and will extend above the existing roof ridge. The second story begins approximately 28 feet from the front wall at the north side of the addition and approximately 32 feet from the front wall at the south side. The peak ridge of the original residence is 25 feet above grade. The addition will feature a gable connecting to a main hip roof with a 6/12 pitch. The peak ridge of the addition is 31 feet 9 inches above grade. The existing front door at the porch will be removed, and in its place a pair of double-hung windows will be installed. A new front door will be installed on the south-facing porch wall. Photos provided by the applicant support this configuration as the original front entry location. Please see the drawing for fenestration details for the side elevations. In review of the proposal, staff finds that the location of the two-story addition in relation to the original single-story footprint does not preserve the historic character and disrupts the essential form and integrity of the Queen Anne cottage. The close proximity of the second level of the addition to the public right-of-way is not compatible with the scale and character of the property and area. The Houston Heights East Ad Hoc Development Review Committee supports the front porch alteration but objects to the addition due to the volume not being consistent with the historic structures in the district. Staff is recommending denial of the C of A.
Okay. Thank you. We do have two people signed up to speak. Mr. Gilbert Perez.
Gilbert Perez with Bungalow Revival. The homeowners are here. If they could approach you first, and then if there's any questions, I'm here to answer. Thank you.
Okay. Do we have any questions for the homeowners or for Mr. Perez? Oh, okay. So I guess you're Mr. Zucker?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So would you like to go ahead and speak?
Yeah, I have a PowerPoint presentation.
Okay. Well, at least we've got a screen showing, so. There we go.
All right. Good afternoon, Commissioner and Commissioner. I appreciate you being here and taking the time to listen to our application. Just in summary, I want to kind of go through why we're proposing this addition, and then discuss kind of the process that we went through with staff, and then cover the substantive issues, which, as I understand, are the gable on the second story, and then also the how far forward or how far back the proposed addition begins, and then also kind of the character of the neighborhood. My name's Jim Zucker. I'm here with my wife, who's going to speak to you in a moment. And the primary reason that we're pursuing this addition is to accommodate our family. We have two daughters. Our 4-year-old Sarah Grace is on the left, and Annalise is 2 on the right. My wife will tell you about how Annalise spent the first year living in a walk-in closet because we only have 2 bedrooms. And while one of the bedrooms is large, obviously the baby wakes up the other child. And then we have extended family who are all out of town who we'd like to accommodate in our home. If you could go to the next slide, please. The reason we're doing this is we love our house, we love our neighbors, and we love our family, and we think this proposed addition can accommodate all 3 of those loves and provide the space but still preserve the historical character of the structure that's there. In short, what we want to do is replace the very awkward, and this pictures will speak for themselves, 1990s addition with this proposed addition. We have supported the historic district. We signed the original petition, and so we think that, and part of the reason we hired Bungalow Revival was their reputation for designing and building things that preserve the history both inside and out of the structure. You see the red arrow, that's the flat roof, the kind of pop-up wing of that 1990s addition. How we got here, we submitted our plans August 28th, and we were hoping to come before the commission last month, and staff kind of asked for additional information and recommended putting it off a month so that we could work with them. We thought that was prudent, so we did that. In the middle of September, Bungalow Revival came down and spent some time in person with staff. They looked over the plans and they came back with 2 recommendations. One was lower the overall height of the roof, which was high because it matched the pitch of the original roof. We gladly agreed to do that. The second was to provide more space on the south side for the original gable that's there. Again, we gladly agreed to do that. We recognize that that is part of the historical character, and frankly, had I realized that it was encroached by the second story, I think we would have done that on our own, even though the additional cost of doing that, because it moves stairs inside and requires us to renovate a bathroom that we hadn't planned on, is going to run approximately $20,000. Then, next slide, please. On October 4th, just a few days ago, I think we got the first call suggesting that the gable on the second story be converted to a hipped roof instead. It wasn't a lot of time to react. We reviewed the ordinance, and I'll get into it in a moment, why we think that it complies with the ordinance. And then yesterday afternoon, less than 24 hours before this meeting, I got a call from the staff basically inquiring were we willing to push the addition back, and kind of saying that this was a really tough call, in large part because the current addition is so awkward. Nobody wants to preserve that flat roof, and this would replace that flat roof. But what do you do? Because that flat roof is already so far forward, it just creates a very awkward situation. So I think it was a tough call for staff, and I appreciate that. With less than 24 hours notice, we kind of were not willing to move things back, in large part because there are just so many other costs that come with that. I'll address the hipped roof or the gable first. If you see the original structure has that gable at the front. It's the most prominent aspect of the house. It's what endears us to it and so many others. And when we read the ordinance, criterion 5 is that proposed activity must maintain or replicate distinctive stylistic exterior features. And we believe that the gable on the second story does exactly that. It replicates the distinctive stylistic exterior feature. It provides coherence between the 2 parts.
I'm sorry, that's time, sir.
If I could have 1 more minute, just 1 more slide.
We'd have to have a motion from the commission. Anybody want to make a motion?
Yeah, I move let him do a slide.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Anybody second? Okay. Commissioner Cosgrove second. All those in favor of granting another minute? Your minute is granted. Continue.
Thank you. The next slide is the issue of pushing the second story back. We go back 1 more. And I think this is right out of the staff's packet. This is their drawing, but you see that the proposed addition doesn't encroach any of the historical structure that it has not already been altered. Everything within the red dotted line is new siding, new windows. It's a flat roof. That's why we drew it where it was, and we think it's appropriate. 1 more slide. You see kind of how crazy this is. The next slide shows what it looks like from the front. You can see this addition from the front. If we have to push back, we're looking at increased square footage on the first floor to support the second floor with attendant increased cost. We're also looking at eliminating valuable green space. This is where our kids play. Ms. Gaffrick referenced it earlier with another property. And essentially, we're going to run out of room between the back of the house and the garage. It's only 12 feet there now. That's assuming we get a 5-foot variance on the distance from the alley. So then we're down to 6 feet. So we have 6 feet to play with. Appreciate your time. I understand I get 3 minutes rebuttal. Maybe I'll get to the rest of the slides at that point. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for the applicant from the commission? Okay. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commission. Thank you so much for listening to our Certificate of Appropriateness request. My name is Tricia Zucker, and I'm also the homeowner. This is our family here, and in the next slide.
And I guess you love Houston, don't you?
We love Houston. And in this next slide, you can see our home. These are our children. And so we care very, very much about the Heights, and we love our neighborhood, and we love this house. And we like to see it be able to withstand another 100 years. But to do that, there are substantial changes that need to be made to make it a sustainable structure. I grew up in Dallas in a historic district called Oak Cliff, and so from a very early age, my parents, they spent a lot of time teaching me about the importance of historic preservation. On the next slide, you will see my parents, and you'll also see that they come to visit us often. And my father looks a bit tired in this photo, you might notice, and that is because on the next slide, you understand that he was woken up by this child quite early in the morning, because you can envision it in our 2-bedroom house. We've got grandparents, kids, all in one room with air mattresses and so forth. It's just too many souls in one room. So the addition is necessary in our mind. On the next few slides, I'd like to explain to you why the existing addition is not in keeping with the historic character, and how these proposed changes greatly improve the condition. So if you would go to the next slide. This is the pop-up strange addition from the 90s. Next slide shows it again, and yet again. And then I'd like to spend a moment on what the woman cares about the most, the interior. Because this addition is so strange, it leads upstairs with very unsafe doorway to the 2nd-story bedroom. And the next slide, you can see that there are low slanted ceilings throughout the addition, and you can continue through the next round of slides to see more and more strange slanted ceilings, which in and of themselves would not be a problem if it weren't for the fact that there's other issues. We have a very unsafe entry into this odd bathroom, where you go down 3 stairs, which is unsafe for grandparents and small children alike. Once you're in the bathroom, the shower is hardly usable on the next slide due to the nature of the gables and how we are, working around the gables. And the next slide also shows how this can be particularly awkward for the gentlemen as they approach the toilet. So, there are changes that need to be made. And in the next slides, I would just also like to bring your attention to this closet that our 1-year-old spent her first year of her life in. And if you'll continue clicking through, you can see that it is, when you move downstairs, the proposed renovations will help us to improve some of the historic character of the interior. The entry right now has this odd stairway crossing, and you can see the stairway from the next angle. And then you can see it continues into our formal dining room on the next slide. And then in the next slide, you can see that other interior changes have been made that do not preserve the historical character, such as the molding being covered. So in conclusion, I would just like to ask you to please think of this as a way to help our family stay here with our neighbors and in this neighborhood we care very much about. That's our block party. We host the block party crawfish boil.
Thank you. Okay, well, shameless use of very cute children, some crawfish. I don't know. This one's pretty interesting. Any questions for staff on this one? I mean, I'll state this. I mean, this one is, I would lean more towards approval of this one just because of the fact that it's replacing a really bad addition that was there already. I think the scale is a bit big, but considering what it's replacing and the way that they're replacing it, I'm more in favor of this one, but it's certainly close. I don't know.
Well, I don't think, denying their plan means that we're in favor of the awkward previous addition.
Yeah.
So, it doesn't have to be just one or the other. There's a way to get rid of that old addition and have something that's uncontroversial as a improvement, an improved addition that's less challenging to the character of the building. So, I agree that addition doesn't look ideal, but that's not really what we're talking about. We're talking about their plans for what to do to the historic house.
Commissioner Mark?
Yes, I agree that the addition is awkward, but it is subservient, which I'm sure that was the intent of the designer that did it. I'm in favor of an addition, but I do think this one is a little overbearing, and I think with some minor adjustments, it could be very successful.
Okay, any other discussion?
I mean, like to appreciate the applicant spending as much time and thought into making the presentation. It's very helpful, and it's good background, but as the ordinance reads, a lot of the issues about that you bring up and are very important to you aren't necessarily the ones we need to look at when deciding whether or not it's an appropriate addition. And I know you all focused on the gable. To me, the major issue here is the additional added volume and how it compares to the original historic home, which I don't think is a matter of tweaking here and there. So I think I agree with staff's recommendation. This is just kind of dwarfs the original building. Some of it's already been dwarfed by the bad addition, but it doesn't mean there's carte blanche to replace it with anything that's marginally better.
Okay. Do we have any other discussion? Questions for staff? I think the applicant would like to speak again. Doesn't he gets a 3-minute rebuttal, doesn't he? So.
He gets a rebuttal. I don't know if it's 3 minutes or 2 minutes.
I can't remember.
I just get my commission. Yep, the 3 minutes.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I guess if I could, maybe I have more questions kind of for you, but I understand, Commissioner Elliott, your point is that, well, there could be something in between. But so based on staff's comments, they would like us to move farther back with the addition. But then you end up with the sloped roof, flat roof, and then whatever kind of roof is on the addition, unless we then also agree to change the slope roof or the flat roof back to the original slope roof. I'm not aware of anything in the ordinance that requires us to change alterations that have already been made in order to qualify for an addition. But I mean, perhaps you could point me to something that does allow the commission to direct us to do that.
I didn't mean to imply that was what you were obligated to do. You can, propose anything you wish, and we're going to look at overall how what you propose, how it affects the character of the property. In some cases, that may mean you're going to be better off removing bad previous additions. In some cases, maybe you wouldn't need to. Again, here the problem is the idea of going further back is generally a recommendation to minimize the impact of the addition onto the character of the original historic building, which is one way to solve the problem. Another way is just to make it smaller. Another way would be to eliminate the old addition and make it a better one. So there are a couple ways to solve it. There's no one way you have to, but the end result has to be, in our estimation, sympathetic to the character of the building and not overwhelm the historic structure and the scale or size, that sort of thing.
We're adding a total of 830 square feet. Relative to the other proposals I've heard today, it seems kind of small. The total square footage of the house would be roughly 2,600. The average square footage of all the houses on the block is 2,600, which includes the 3 single-story houses that are on the block. If you take those 3 out and only count the 2-story structures on the block, the average is over 3,000, which we come in 400 under. We're not looking to get extra square feet. If you feel 830 is too much and overwhelms the character, that's obviously your opinion.
Well, no, and we've never had a strict square footage, and I'm surprised that the size of this addition. Does that not include the porch, perhaps? And you're replacing, you're eliminating part of an addition and replacing it with something, so there's no net change, I suppose.
But most of the square footage is already there.
It's already there,
Right.
right. So it's really just more the character of the addition you're proposing compared to the historic building. It's not strictly a square footage thing, but it's just this is coming up taller and wider and appears to kind of swallow it up a little bit. So, I mean, I think, farther back or lowering, there are ways to do this, and you're quite right. We approved quite a few additions. So I'm not, this one just, I think I'm echoing what staff and other commissioners have said, that it seems to be out of scale with the original house. But I'm the only one talking for some reason. I don't know why it always ends up being that way.
Okay, Commissioner
Did
Moore.
we approve in the consent agenda the detached garage for
Yes.
your property?
Yes.
I'm just wondering, and maybe this isn't the time to problem solve, but you mentioned that the issue with pulling it back gives you less space in the backyard, but maybe a consideration of combining that garage with living space above and attaching. I don't know if there's a prohibition on attached garages.
My
in
understanding
there.
is it's frowned upon in the Heights, that is not the character of the neighborhood to have attached garages. That's, I think I read that on the website somewhere.
I guess it would really be governed by deed restrictions, you know, if you're, and I'm not familiar with the deed restrictions in that particular spot of the Heights. When I was speaking earlier about Norhill, that's just because I had to enforce those deed restrictions for 4 years, so, but I don't really know about the deed restrictions on this part. All right, do we have any more questions for the applicant or discussion? Okay.
All right, we appreciate your consideration.
Thank you.
People can disagree with Mr. Elliott.
Yeah, all the
Yeah,
time.
right. Okay, do we have any other discussion? Okay, would anybody like to make any motions? Okay, Commissioner Mon?
I make a motion, we accept staff's recommendation and deny the C of A for item 2W 1213 Harvard,
Okay, with the stated criterion that staff has stated, I guess?
with the
Yeah.
criterion staff has stated.
Okay. All right, we've got a motion to deny. Do we have a second on that item? Anybody? Okay, Commissioner Buchek, seconds. All those in favor of a denial of certificate of appropriateness, please raise your hands. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, any opposed? Okay, any abstain? We've got 1 abstain. Okay, that item has been denied a certificate of appropriateness. Moving